Welcome to Accessibility Insights. Today we have a special guest, Raga from Digital Ally. Welcome to the podcast, Raga.
Thank you, Eugene.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And for those of you who don't know, Raga is the founder of Digital Ally. It's a company and also a website with lots and lots of resources for digital accessibility. So yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been following, your work for a while, and Digital Ally is very well known in the space for being a great resource for those who are interested in learning more about digital accessibilities and all things digital accessibilities. So maybe we can start a little bit about you giving us a little bit of how you got started in your journey into digital accessibility.
So it's a long story. I'm blind. Now I'm 100% blind, but back then when I was low vision, in 2006, I was rejected from job in all the corporate companies because I'm low vision and they don't know about anything about screen readers back then, and they don't know about magnifiers. And they said, we don't have accommodations. We need to talk to the diversity team. And I don't know what to do. So I was trying to find a job and couldn't. And I was graduating in a few months. I was hanging out with one of my friend and he's building website back then. And they said with Google AdSense, you can make money. So I came home. I started learning a Microsoft front page and I said, okay, I know now to make website. How do I get money? And he said, no, you need to host the website. You need to do SEO. I came home, started learning that. And during this process, a lot of things happened. And one of the things that we collaborated with another web designer back then, and we started selling the templates that we built. And one particular UK-based education organization came to us and said, we need a 10-page website. We built it. And while before the delivery, they said, is it accessible? And we did not even know the word accessibility back then. It was the end of 2006, early 2007 in Jan-Feb time. And I said, okay, let's Google it again. We did. We said, okay, we should not use layout tables. You should use alt text. Okay, headings. So we did very basic stuff, very, very basic stuff. Because we built it in Microsoft front page and Dreamweaver were very good tools back then to do the static websites. We did very basic stuff. The client was happy. That's when I first started with accessibility. And then I started working on my own websites and digital platforms for the next 3-4 years. Drastically, I became blind. Over a period of time, my eyesight started diminishing and I couldn't manage my website servers and all that. So I said, I need a job now. I need a real job. And I went and retrained myself in learning screen readers, using the white cane, traveling alone and all the skills. And that's when I landed in IBM, handling mainframes operations. But no, it's not interesting for me. But during another event, I was very active in the startup community and technology circles. I went for a design thinking event where I met another fellow IBMer who said he's part of the user experience team and he's looking for someone to work in accessibility space. And we got introduced on Friday, and Monday I got introduced to his manager and I got hired in the accessibility team over there. So that's the story.
That's wow. That's a really, really good story. It's a mix. It's really interesting to hear. It's a mix between your own personal experience and also your entrepreneurism and your, and when did you start Digital Ally, and kind of went all into your own business?
So I was with IBM close to 5 years and quit IBM I moved to my city. I want to live with my parents before I leave the country, because then I got an opportunity to work with DQ Systems, then where I joined DQ. I was with DQ for 7 years, but a Digital Ally domain, I bought it in about 10, 11 years back.
Okay.
And because I have a lot of domains, you need to understand I come from that SEO and affiliate background back then.
Okay.
So I used to, any domain that I like, I buy them. So I hoarded like, hundreds of domains back then. And having one-page websites, or running ads on them. So my first love, even if you ask someone, as I'd say, it's digital marketing.
Right. Okay.
It's all about design, user behavior, color, psychology. All this is fascinating for me, because this is where I used to live in that world. And I bought the domain, I kept it. I wrote 3-4 articles. I just left it. Back in 2018, 19, early 2019, during a regular scan, health checkup, they told that my kidneys are at 10%. And I don't know what to do. I was in my job. Then I said, okay, I started writing, because in 2006, initially when I got started in web design and development part, I regularly started blogging. I said I need to get back to blogging, and I started writing both on my personal blog. I own a personal blog, and I thought, okay, I have Digital Ally. Let's build this. I don't see. So what I did is I started writing whatever I learned in accessibility in the simplified, because understanding WCAG guidelines were very difficult for me when I got started. I said I'll simplify in a language that I understood. And me and another friend, we both started writing, and he used to curate and edit my content. Like, he used to proofread and do that. And it started growing since then. And the full all in, I went about 3 years back in 2021. I got through on a kidney transplant. Then I said, okay, I need break from the corporate life. And now I do a lot of contract work and freelance work.
Okay. Yeah, and you've got, as you mentioned, you've got lots and lots of experience, both personally and also working with companies. What are, what are some of the most common accessibility mistakes you see companies, especially the bigger ones? What do they make? I mean, obviously you don't have to name names or anything, but what are some of the common mistakes that companies make when it comes to digital accessibility?
Now it is more mature. Back then, alt text is one,
Okay.
color contrast is one, and focus and reading order are huge red flags back then.
Right.
I'm talking about 10 years back, even 5-6 years back also. Now it is more mature, because the amount of tools that we have is more robust, I would say. And the awareness on testing methodology has evolved back now. It's easy to find good tutorials on how to perform an accessibility testing and record issues, failures, all that.
Right.
Back then, there's very little information. The only resource that I know back then that is more robust and easy to understand and digestible is WebAIM.
WebAIM, right? Yeah, agree. Yeah, they have great content in
So
there. Yeah.
2000, when I got started in 2011, 2012, 2013 full time, virtually I used to live on WebAIM.
Yeah, I've met some of the WebAIM guys. They're great. Yeah, I've met them in a conference last year. So you spoke a little bit about the maturity of tools and how things have changed now. So we still see a lot of companies. I mean, despite the fact that yes, it's moved a lot. I think WebAIM does this, survey or research every year, and they pick like the top 1 million site. I forget what is it. Maybe the top 1 million.
WebAIM
I
1
think
million.
yeah, 1 million, and it's still simple things like you said, even the alt text and proper. It's still a shocking amount of people fail. I don't remember the amount for alt text, but it's still, I want to say it's definitely, around maybe 30 to 50% still fails the alt text thing. So I think we've made great progress, but there's still a long way to go. And obviously, you are in the forefront of this. So tell us a little bit about how does Digital Ally help companies or organizations, become more accessible? So maybe speak a little bit about like the stuff, the services that you provide and the problems that you solve for companies and organizations.
We do a lot of audits,
Okay.
accessibility audits. We do consulting work where, after an audit, we spend a lot of time with the development and design teams with regard to how we can refactor or redesign that same widget in a simple experience. Because being someone with lived experience, and when we do user testing, we find a lot of things that are not. See, there's a huge difference between what is compliant, accessible, conformant, and usable.
Yes.
And during my career, I found a lot of things as, oh, this is accessible. It passes WCAG. Yeah, it passes WCAG, but it is not usable. For me to find that button, if it takes like 10, 15 minutes, if it is not accessible for me.
So you bring up a great point. Yeah. Like being compliant is one thing, and actually the usability is a different thing. It could pass all the checkers, especially all the automatic checkers. But once you expose it to real users with disabilities, it fails, right? And so what is your testing kind of a process look like? How do you help companies test, and how do you test, internally, when you have a client? Yeah.
Oh, we have our own testing methodology. What we do is we run it through keyboard, then we run it through screen readers.
Okay.
First, anyhow, we run it with automation tool. So we use both Wave and we use Axe.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because those two are very well known in the industry, just to see if they're false positives and potentially violations. Sometimes we do use IBM Equal Accessibility Toolkit to see how any issues that particular rule set is throwing. Then we run through manual audits, a lot of manual work. So one of the things that we realize is testing is easy after you spent a lot of time, and doing accessibility auditing of websites. Auditors come second to none, because like if you're taking checkpoints, let's just say in WCAG, you have like till 2.2, you have 56 right now. But on any given web page, if there's no video, you have to remove all the 5 checkpoints of the video, 1.2.1 to 2.5. Right. Because there's no audio, 1.4.2 also goes away. So like in your mind's eye, I can see which are checkpoints that are not valid. So you have all these other checkpoints. So you shift tab, and when you use screen reader, you use browse mode, forms mode, and you'd see if everything is working. If the forms have labels, alt text, and if the errors are there, the name role value is proper, because these are all the basic things. And once we do all this, we do record. We have our own, tool that to automate how we report accessibility failures. And we have our own issue description library that we wrote, and we use that and report issues. We generally use Excel sheet to record issues. And then we package it with an executive summary. We give resources and other guidance also in the report.
How about, so I'm going to switch gears or not. So, we've mainly covered website accessibility, and, as I'm very involved in document accessibility. The Venngage, the tool that we create, is mainly, in the realm of document accessibility, PDFs particularly. what is your experience with maybe with document accessibility? It seems to be a little bit more decentralized, and there's many different creators using many different tools, creating PDFs, not just PDFs, but PowerPoints, all kinds of documents, and then they're kind of all scattered everywhere on the website, sometimes on social media. What is your recommendation, or what is your experience dealing with document accessibility?
So my experience is more on creating documents rather than remediating. So as you know, a blind person like me cannot remediate a PDF.
Right.
Even in 2024. I need to rely on a sighted person because the tag tree in Adobe is not accessible. And so what we do is I personally create all my documents in Word document, and I export them into PDF. Then, I need to rely on a document remediation specialist to tell me if everything is accessible there. Because you can do everything and export, and still there might be something that goes. Again, we come back to conformance versus usability. It is readable with screen reader. Everything is okay. But again, does it pass the PDF fact checker tool? No. If it doesn't, then, we need to do it. That is one gap that I've seen. The other gap is, you brought a very interesting point. There are so many tools, either it is Word, Google Docs, or Microsoft Office 365, or, you use Figma or Canva or anything. You create all this content on all these platforms and you export either in doc, PowerPoint, or PDF. The major problem is a lot of users, even the people who work with me, my virtual assistant and some other people I know, some of my design friends, the developers, they can get all these documents to me. And when you ask about accessibility, it is a huge learning curve. There is a huge learning curve. They have to really learn how to use the PowerPoint accessibility checker, see which one is not accessible. They have to check the reading order. It should be easy, to upload that into a platform. Quickly, it gives you the tag tree, how it is. What are the accessibility failures in this particular document? Rearrange it and export the accessible version.
Totally agree with you on that point. I think, number one, remediation is very difficult because you're addressing the problem at the end, and as you mentioned, you need to address the problem at the start and during the design process, and having the right tools with the accessibility checkers that can it's sort of like guardrails. They kind of sort of like check as you design, so you don't have to redesign or recreate it after you've done the whole design, which is the process right now. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that Venngage is very heavily involved in, and our tool allows you to do that, right? Like that's the goal of it, is to allow the creator to create accessible designs from the start, as opposed to relying on remediation at the end.
Yeah, that should be the goal. Or you can upload the existing document and remediate it much faster.
Right. And I agree with you with compliance versus actual screen reader experience. I had yesterday, we had a document that we were testing and it failed. The screen reader, we were using JAWS and NVDA, was fine. It was able to read, but the spec, the PDA UA spec, actually said you had to put this alt text in a hyperlink in a certain area, but it doesn't read it. Screen reader doesn't read it. So, but you had to put it there just so that it passed the PACS checker, even though the screen reader never reads it. So it was kind of one of those situations where you're like, yeah, I'm putting it there because it's for PACS to pass the compliance test, but actually users won't ever use it because the screen reader doesn't read it.
That's a problem.
Yeah, I think in those cases, I don't know how the standards are written. Like, do they consult with, or whether the screen readers actually read the standards or not? There seems to be a gap between screen readers and standards.
Yeah, there's a gap, like when I use NVDA, JAWS, or VoiceOver, there's a huge gap when you use it on the web also, because whatever is supported by one screen reader is not supported by the other, or the browser, or the
Yeah.
operating system. So you have to really be a pro and go find is it a really accessibility failure, or is it the browser or the screen reader?
Yeah. So what is your preferred screen reader? I mean, I guess this is a personal, kind of a personal choice. Do you use just one screen reader? Do you use several
No, I
screen
use
readers?
two. So on mobile, I use VoiceOver. I use iPhone,
Okay.
and I'm not comfortable with Android. If you ask me to test, yes, I'll perform testing on Android, but my day-to-day, I use an iPhone, and I prefer screen readers JAWS for day-to-day work. But when testing, I use NVDA for an audit.
Okay. Why the difference? Is it because NVIDIA is more commonly used because it's free and for testing? Yes.
It's more commonly used, and just to see. So what I do is, personally, when I do perform testing, I quickly run the page with JAWS, and then I use NVDA also.
Got it. And
just to see, yeah.
right. And are you on your? So I'm assuming you use a Windows computer. Do you ever test on a Mac? Just curious.
No.
No.
So when I started, so I got trained on. So in 2008, when I started learning screen readers, I got trained on JAWS. Then when NVDA came, it was difficult for me to shift to NVDA in 2013, 2014. During that time, NVDA was picking up very fast. It was difficult for me, but slowly we moved. I learned NVDA, and it's an experience. There is some kind of, I don't know. It maybe it is a blind thing, or it is a personal experience for me. And I checked with a lot of my friends who are also visually impaired, and they said, whoever gets trained on JAWS back then, we still use JAWS as a primary screen reader. So, and I learned VoiceOver. The only problem that I faced is back then I was not able to get a keyboard that is 100% keyboard and external one that fits with Mac. And because all the keys, even today, I use external keyboard. I cannot use a laptop keyboard because my fingers are very broad and my body structure is very broad. So when I use a laptop keyboard, my wrists hurt and my fingers also hurt a lot.
That is definitely a very interesting, the comment about, hey, whatever you get trained with, that's the one you end up using. Yeah.
I checked with a lot of friends in the circle, and they're like, yeah, we all use JAWS.
Yeah, I think, it's from our testing, we also test mainly with NVDA, and then JAWS is the secondary, secondary. We almost, once in a while, we'll have a user that asks us about VoiceOver, and then we'll have to, even though as an organization we use Macs as our laptops, or a lot of our testers, and we're mainly a Mac-based company. But we are testing mainly on Windows because I think predominantly there are a lot more Windows users than Mac users out there.
I agree because in a lot of companies, there's always everyone uses Mac because all design and development people prefer Mac.
Okay. All right. So since we're at we're on the subject of screen readers, I want to get your opinion on AI. Have you? I'm sure you have, but what is your experience with the new AI tools out there? Like ChatGPT, for example, that can describe a document or a website or even an image quite well without it being compliant with accessibility standards. I think ChatGPT Vision does really well. They have an app as well called like Be My Eyes. What is your experience using these fairly new AI tools?
I use them a lot. The Be My AI, I use it a lot to understand my surroundings. I would say, the alt text that it provides is more comprehensive than a human writing it. Because in my experience, when I ask, so there is some a few weeks back, me and my designer Monica Prasad, we both was chatting about AI, and we saw the ChatGPT 4. I said, they provided this feature that you can upload the image and it explains. And I said, can't we automate accessibility testing audit with ChatGPT? And we did some proof of concept, and we were amazed. He said, why should I always rely on some sighted person to explain how the visual aspect is? I can take a screenshot, give it to the AI, and it explains how the nav is, where the images are, how many links, how the whole layout of the page is. Then I can perform the testing much more easier, because if, let's just say, if something is with CSS and it did not come in my screen reader, I know, the screen reader did not read it and there's a failure there.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're using it both personally, the app Be My Eyes, and also now at work you're experimenting with developing tools to help you test and do audits and sites.
Yes. So because one example I'll tell you, if you do resize text and reflow, I need to call someone and say, okay, I just moved this to 200%. Is there a content that overlapped? Is it now? Can I use AI? I take a screenshot, give it to it, and ask the ChatGPT Vision to explain it. And then in the follow-up prompt, I can ask, is there a content that overlaps? Is there content that is lost?
And ChatGPT gives you the right answer. Like, how do you know when it gives you the right? It does. Okay.
It does. See, I'm not saying it is perfect, but it moves the needle significantly in my favor. That maybe I'll do 80% accurate. I don't have to wait for a site assist half day, so that the site assist finishes their part of the accessibility audit, comes to me and starts helping.
Okay. Yeah, let's
just put it this way. The form fields just have color. There's no text errors. I think ChatGPT Vision can explain it, which color the form field is in. Then I know that there is a use of color over there.
Got it. That is refreshing to hear. A very maybe anti is a strong word, but anti-AI. And they're mainly cited. I would assume cited users who really just have a negative, I guess, perception of AI in general. But then again, there are also people who use it. People who are blind, people who have low vision, who actually use AI, and they're very. The feedback I get is that it's really helpful. They don't have to rely on a human. And yeah, do you find have you talked to people who are kind of like, how do you change someone's mind when they're like very anti, or they have like a very negative perception of AI?
I don't change. So it's all about, there's a lot of talk. I run one of the largest accessibility community here in India, and we do meetups locally. We meet for lunches. We do meet for some snacks. We talk. We swap technology and notes on accessibility and a lot of stuff. And everyone is like, "Will AI take our jobs? Will AI take our jobs?" And I said, "There's one interesting thing, If AI takes accessibility jobs, it will be the cited jobs. Someone has to do the end user testing, so we'll be in the business still."
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
So I said, don't worry. That is one. And there are people, who don't use any of these tools. I use ChatGPT a lot, like even for generating code, preparing tools, experimenting. And it works fairly good for me. Like, depending on how you prompt it, you can write even accessible code to an extent. Like it moves you the needle from 0 to 80, 0 to 90. and you need a real developer to get that last leg moving.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's definitely 0 to 80 and 0 to 90 for many. I would say it's at least basic tasks for sure. Sometimes
Yes.
it's zero, sometimes it's 0 to 99 for a lot for like very basic tasks. I use ChatGPT almost daily as well. I don't write code anymore. I used to, but actually I use it to write database queries. So I guess
Yeah.
that's some sort of code to query our database. I don't write it myself anymore. I just get ChatGPT to write it. It's much easier.
Say the most used for us is uh, I used to rely earlier on, human editors when I write content. And it used to take time. Now you give it to ChatGPT and say, correct English, use American tone,
Right.
or, just, I just say, keep my writing style and just correct grammar and send, because English is not our first language. While we speak English in India, we learned everything. We did all our education in English. There's always the difference in how communication in the East and the West is very different.
Yeah,
And
agree.
it is a lot to
Yeah.
do with culture also.
Yes. Yeah.
So in
And it's
that
great
case,
that
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, in that case, ChatGPT is great because it just bridges that gap right now. English is not going to be a barrier for a lot of them who are upcoming from this side of the world.
I don't think I've ever heard someone said that, yeah, ChatGPT is helping bridge the gap between cultures, but you're right. Now that you put it in context, it helps. It definitely helps non-native speakers, someone who doesn't have a good grasp of let's say English, and if they want to communicate. And we do that. So, we even in our company, we have a lot of employees where English is not their first language. And yeah, and we communicate mainly through written now. We're a remote company. Everyone is writing. No, we do have meetings, but we try not to have a lot of meetings because it takes up a lot of time. And so most communication is written now. So yeah, I agree. I use ChatGPT to create content as well, to correct my grammar, and very similar. I grew up in Malaysia, uh, British former British colony, and so definitely learn English to start. But yeah, there are some cultural differences and also some differences in the words you use and all that. So
Yes.
digital accessibility. Let's go. The AI topic is great, but I think with digital accessibility, if I were a new organization, so not a new, sorry, I was an organization new to digital accessibility, right? Like, for whatever reason, I did not take it seriously. What are some of the practical steps I could do? Well, what would you suggest, for someone or for an organization that's new to digital accessibility? What are some of the basic small starting steps they can take?
It depends on who is driving this in the organization first. Is it coming from the top? Is it in the middle? Is it someone in the lower end of the tier who is driving digital accessibility? Because we have seen all kinds in my career. Someone who's driving it in the top, what they do is they are focused on bringing in policy changes. They bring in building the core working groups. Then they appoint the leads for those core working groups who drive the initiatives. When it comes to the middle, it's always been the product managers because compliance has become one part of their what do you call? I wouldn't say job also. It is something that they care for. Some people really care for accessibility and inclusion. So either they learned it here or they learned it somewhere else. I met some product managers who want to drive this. Well, in an organization, accessibility and inclusion is not really, it's an afterthought. These product managers or program managers or leaders in the middle, they drive it as a personal this thing. And the lower tier, what happens is there's this employees with disabilities or advocates of people with disability and accessibility, they drive the initiatives. But in my experience, I have seen without the blessing from the top, it doesn't work. Because what happens is the groups, you can take product managers, developers, designers, they take accessibility. Like a developer, what they do, they run automation testing on every code that they write. They output accessible code as much as they can, and they try to teach their fellow peers who might not or might not follow again. Same with the design teams. But what happens is when these people leave or when they move out of the organization, that particular accessibility initiative doesn't exist anymore. And we have seen those classic examples, where the app is very accessible and the next major update after a year, the app is not accessible at all. Why is it? Because the team that used to work on this app doesn't work anymore in that organization.
Yeah, that's
so if you have to start somewhere, I would say, you need to get the policies, you need to get the right awareness sessions, disability and sensitization, empathy labs. Then you need to create awareness. Then you need to do buddy system with disabled people. They need to spend time with disabled people. It's not just like, I spent 1 hour with a blind person, a motor disabled person. It doesn't work. You need to understand the personality, what they like, what they don't like, different people with disabilities have different personalities again. You can't say, oh, one person with blindness said this is good for us. No. And then you do the design thinking, you go back to the board. Then the tools, audits, all these will come into the place.
So it has to come from the top, and I think I agree. I definitely agree with you on that as well. It's and getting buy-in from upper management from the top is very, very difficult. Do you when people who are lower, sort of like at the more junior level, come to Digital Ally and say, hey, we want to make this product, do you advise them to make sure they get buy-in from upper management before you continue? Like, is that part of, or like because that is usually like a big a barrier too, right? Like you can have the person like a product manager or even a developer who has learned about accessibility. They're kind of excited, they want to do the right thing, but they don't necessarily have upper management blessing or budget, and then they're trying to do all these things, and we've seen it too, and sometimes I wish I would instead of just helping them and knowing that, hey, they probably won't get very far, maybe we could help them maneuver upstream to get some blessings from upper management.
We can do as much. There's someone I come from an entrepreneur background. So I've seen both sides, correct? You want to, we all learned lean startup, moving agile and all that. You have to ship the product first. Because one of the lesson that, in my entrepreneur circles, they tell us the business exists, then all the ideas will exist. You can do all these changes if you have the budget to pay your salaries for next month, your server costs for next month. So they say you move first, launching the product, iterating it because accessibility, for me personally, in my experience, accessibility is hard. You do it from start, you do it from the design phase. It takes time to implement accessibility. And when you do it retro, like after you build something, it's much harder. Very, very harder to do development changes back in the product. And that's one reason that, a lot of people, because it's a significant cost. You do it from start, it's a cost, but you avoid a lot of retro cost on that development.
Yeah, a lot of rework. Yeah,
Rework.
100% agree with you there. Okay.
And accessibility is hard. You need to
It is
learn
hard.
first. Yeah, it is hard. You need to learn, understand the success criteria. You need to know the best practices. You need to know which React components are accessible, or which Vue components are, whether they have the right accessible calendar widget that works across the platform. Not. There's a lot of things that goes in it.
Agree. It's very, very hard. I think that's why a lot of organizations struggle with it. It's because it's not easy to do, right? It's something that's very, and a lot of standard tools. I mean, you bring up a good point, like the calendar tools or even form tools. Even the most popular ones are not accessible. Like I mean, I hear that all the time. Yeah. So even big companies that have been around for 20 years, their products, and they're used by millions and millions of people, their products are not accessible. So
I agree.
Yeah. All right. We are almost at the end. Is there any other questions I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think it's a good conversation we had. So
very, very cool. And
yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of tell people how they can get in touch with you if they need help, how they get in touch with you or with the Digital Ally if they need help with digital accessibility, or if they have any questions. Yeah, just tell our audience how can they get in touch with you.
Oh, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and my email is hello@digitalally.com.
So yeah, thank you very much, Raghav. Really,
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
G.
this. This was great. Thank you.
This was great. Thank you.